Commander Vessis of the Thalorian Empire stood on the observation deck of the Grand Station, watching through the massive viewport as the impossible unfolded before her compound eyes. The cosmic storm that they had predicted would end all life in the Outer Rim was tearing through space with a fury that made stars flicker and die. Entire fleets of the most advanced civilizations had already been swept away like dust in the wind. The humans, her aide whispered, pointing at a small blue planet that sat directly in the path of destruction. They are still there. Vexis clicked her mandibles in what her species used to express sorrow. The humans had been discovered only 50 years ago, a young species that had barely reached the stars. They were soft, fragile creatures who needed to breathe a very specific mix of gases and could only survive within a narrow range of temperatures. When the Galactic Senate had warned them about the coming storm, they had expected the humans to beg for evacuation ships. Instead, the humans had done something strange. They had smiled. "We have weathered storms before," their ambassador had said. "We will weather this one too." The Senate had tried to explain that this was not like the small storms that happened on their planet. This was a cosmic event that happened once every million years. It would strip atmospheres from planets and turn moons into ash. The radiation alone would kill any carbon-based life form within seconds of exposure. The humans had just nodded and said they understood. Then they went back to their little planet and started building. Now, as Vexis watched the wall of destruction approaching Earth, she could see what they had built. Around the entire planet, a network of massive structures had been erected. They were ugly things, purely functional, made of metal and concrete and whatever else the humans could get their hands on. Shield generators, she realized. Thousands of them working together to create a barrier around their world. "Impossible," her chief scientist said, checking his instruments. "They cannot have the power to maintain such a shield. The energy requirements would be enormous. Look at their planet," another officer pointed out. "The lights are gone." It was true. The bright side of Earth, which normally glowed with the light of human cities, was now completely dark. Every bit of power their civilization produced was being fed into those shields. Billions of humans were sitting in darkness, giving up their comfort, their convenience, everything they had, just to survive. The storm hit Earth like a hammer. The shields flared bright with the effort of holding back the destruction. Vexis could see them flickering, struggling, and she was certain they would fail. No technology could stand against such power. But the shields did not fall. For 3 long days, the storm raged against Earth. The humans lost entire sections of their shield network. Islands of metal burned and fell. Millions of tons of their infrastructure were torn away and scattered into space. But every time a generator failed, the humans redirected power from somewhere else. Every time a section of shield collapsed, they found a way to fill the gap. Vexis received reports from her observation teams. The humans were not just sitting in the dark, waiting for the storm to pass. They were fighting. Teams of engineers in barely protective suits were going out into the chaos, repairing damage as it happened. Many of them died, but more came to take their place. It was as if the entire species had decided together that they would not give up, no matter the cost. On the second day, the humans started broadcasting a signal. At first, Vexis thought it was a distress call, a final plea for help. But when her communications officer translated it, she realized it was something else entirely. It was music. The humans were playing songs across their planet, broadcasting them into space so that anyone watching could hear. Songs about hope and survival, about refusing to give up, about standing together in the face of destruction. Vexis did not understand the words, but she understood the feeling behind them. It was defiance, pure and simple. "They are insane," her scientist whispered. "No," Vexis replied, feeling something she had never felt before when looking at the small species. "They are human." By the third day, the storm began to weaken. The shields were barely holding together, patched with emergency repairs and powered by the last reserves of human energy. Vexis had watched many disasters in her long life, but she had never seen anything like this. The humans should have been dead many times over. Their technology was not advanced enough. Their bodies were too weak. Everything about them said they could not survive. But they did not care what the universe said about them. When the storm finally passed, the ground station's sensors showed that Earth was still there. Damaged, scarred, with great chunks of its orbital infrastructure floating in ruins around it. But alive. The humans had done what every other species in the galaxy had failed to do. They had stood against the storm and survived. Vexis immediately ordered her fleet to move in and offer assistance. She expected to find a broken people, exhausted and barely clinging to life. What she found instead shocked her even more than the battle itself. The first thing Vexis noticed as her shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere was the smoke. Great columns of it rising from cities all across the planet, but not from destruction. The humans were cooking. They were having celebrations. Barely 12 hours after surviving an extinction-level event, and they were throwing parties. She landed in the human capital, where a gathering of their leaders waited to meet her. They looked tired, their faces showing the strain of 3 days without sleep or rest. Many of them had bandages on their hands and arms from working alongside their people to keep the shields running. But they were smiling. "Commander Vexis," the human president said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. "Welcome to Earth. Sorry about the mess." Vexis looked around at the damage. Buildings were cracked and broken. Streets were covered in debris from the shield generators that had fallen during the storm. In the distance, she could see a massive repair effort already underway, with humans climbing over the wreckage like insects, already rebuilding what had been lost. "How?" Vexis asked, the only question that seemed appropriate. "How did you do this?" The president smiled, a tired but proud expression. "We are very good at not dying when we are supposed to." Over the next few weeks, Vexis learned more about humans than she had in the entire 50 years since first contact. She learned that their planet had tried to kill them many times throughout their history. Ice ages that covered their world in frozen death. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Plagues that wiped out large portions of their population. Asteroids that should have ended their existence. Every single time, the humans had survived. They had a word for it, one that did not translate well into any other language in the galaxy. Resilience. The ability to be bent and broken, but never fully destroyed. The stubborn refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat seemed certain. Vexis began to understand that this was not just a trait of humans. It was the core of who they were. The cosmic storm had destroyed 17 civilizations across the galaxy. Entire species had been wiped out, their planets now nothing but dead rocks floating through space. The Galactic Senate was in chaos, trying to figure out how to rebuild from such a devastating loss. And in the middle of all this destruction, the humans were not just surviving. They were thriving. Within 3 months of the storm's passing, human ships began appearing in the territories of other species. But they were not there to take advantage of the chaos. They were there to help. The humans brought supplies, brought engineers, brought hope to civilizations that had lost everything. "We know what it is like to rebuild from nothing," the human ambassador explained to the Senate. "We have done it many times. Let us help you do it too." The technology that the humans had developed to survive the storm was shared freely with anyone who wanted it. Their shield systems, their power distribution networks, their emergency protocols. All of it was given away without any demand for payment or favor. When asked why, the humans simply shrugged and said it was the right thing to do. Vexis watched all of this with growing amazement. She had spent her career studying species across the galaxy, trying to understand what made each one unique. She had seen powerful empires built on strength and technology. She had seen wise civilizations that valued knowledge above all else. but she had never seen anything like the humans. They were not the strongest species. Their bodies were fragile, easily damaged, slow to heal. They were not the smartest species. Their technology was rough and unpolished compared to the elegant designs of older civilizations. They were not the most numerous, or the most wealthy, or the most anything, but they were the most stubborn. The humans simply refused to accept that anything was impossible. Tell them they could not survive a cosmic storm, and they would build shields to prove you wrong. Tell them a planet was too damaged to save, and they would find a way to heal it. Tell them the universe was cruel and uncaring, and they would respond with music and laughter and an outstretched hand offering help. 5 years after the storm, the galaxy was a different place. The humans had helped rebuild 12 civilizations that would have otherwise faded into extinction. Their technology had been adapted and improved, creating shields that could protect against future cosmic events. A new alliance had formed, with humans at its center, not because they demanded leadership, but because everyone else recognized what they had done. Vexus retired from her position as commander and chose to spend her remaining years on Earth. She wanted to understand these strange creatures better, to learn their secrets of survival. What she found was simpler than she expected. The humans survived because they believed they could. Not through logic or calculation, but through pure, stubborn faith in themselves and each other. When the storm came, they did not waste time wondering if survival was possible. They just started working, started building, started fighting, and they kept fighting until the storm was gone and they were still standing. On the anniversary of the storm's passing, the humans held a remembrance ceremony. They lit candles for those who had died keeping the shields running. They told stories of bravery and sacrifice. And then, as the night grew dark, they did something that perfectly captured everything Vexus had learned about them. They started to sing the same songs they had broadcast during the storm, songs of hope and defiance and the unbreakable human spirit. Vexus listened, her compound eyes reflecting the candlelight, and she understood at last why the humans had survived when so many others had not. They had turned catastrophe into triumph, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom. They had done it through the simple, powerful belief that no matter how dark the storm, the light would always return. And as long as even one human remained to light a candle and sing a song, the darkness would never win. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day, one that would be remembered for millions of years to come. There were many ways to measure the strength of a species, but the truest measure was not power or intelligence or numbers. It was the ability to endure, to keep going when everything said you should stop, to find hope in the deepest darkness. And in that measure, the humans were the strongest species the galaxy had ever seen.